Hey everybody, Jeff here with JFree906 podcast, and welcome. Tonight we have a great show for you. It's going to be a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch. It's going to be a little bit about the expedition Bigfoot, but it's mostly and all actually about our special guest tonight, Pete Kelsey. So Mike Owen, who is a moderator over at the Insiders for Skinwalker Ranch Insiders, is going to help me co-host tonight. And we've got Pete Kelsey on. And you guys know Pete Kelsey, he's been on several different shows. And this guy, I tell you, has got a background. The places he's been and the things that he has done, you're in for a treat tonight. So sit back and enjoy. We're going to be right back right after this. So we're going to get started with Pete Kelsey. All right. Why do the UFOs show up there? Why are there so many going there and spotted there over most any place else in the world? There are other UFO hotspots, but Skinwalker Ranch area is definitely one of them. This shot right here, this is basically a collage of all the UAPs that they had seen over the ranch during last season. They put them all together into one picture. And that's a lot of them. And it was when the drill rig was in the ground, their compasses were changing. Instead of pointing to north, they were pointing at the drill rig. I mean, how does things like this happen?
I feel like with the Insiders, it's really unique where it doesn't feel like we're fans anymore necessarily. Like we are, but like we're involved.
Right.
And that feels much more official than a fan.
All right, we are back, and Mike Owen sitting in the co-host chair tonight, and our very special guest, Mr. Pete Kelsey. Welcome. Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll tell you what, as I was mentioning earlier, and Mike and I have been talking about this for a while, having you on the show, and, it's one of those things where looking into your background, I first got introduced to you by watching Skinwalker Ranch when you came out there and you were doing some work for the team with the drone and the LiDAR. That's where I first saw you. But then I thought, wait a minute, haven't I seen him before somewhere? And sure enough, Expedition Bigfoot. So I saw both of those, and which was really neat. But then, I got looking into your background and I thought, oh my gosh. And that's why I picked this background that I'm showing right here as Easter Island, because you've got a lot of experience there as well. And it's a treat to have you on. I thank you again for coming on tonight.
I know this is going to be fun. So yeah. And wow, Easter Island, it's kind of where literally my life changed from black and white to color. Literally.
Really?
Yeah, it was just, call it the first sort of special project I did, first high visibility thing, because at the time I was working for a huge software company and I was the global evangelist for one of their product lines, which had to do with civil engineering and surveying and whatnot. And I just went to my boss and said, I'm going to be down in South America anyway. I'm going to take 5 days off and go out to the island and see if I can't start a conversation about these things that I know how to do and how I think they could be relevant there. And then.
So you were on vacation. You went out there on vacation.
I did.
And you ended up working.
Yeah. Well, I had this vision of, it's such a, unique place. The place, speaks for itself. And I just thought, look, my skill set in general is I know how to basically virtualize or 3D model any physical thing. It's kind of what I do, even back then. So I just went out on vacation and started asking people who would care about this.
All right.
And I found somebody, and she's a dear friend to this day. And 5 trips later, and we modeled the whole island and
Oh my gosh.
had amazing relationships, amazing experiences. Got the tattoo.
Oh, cool! Look at that. All right.
So yeah, it's kind of my origin story that, in terms of figuring out, it was the first place that I became aware that the things that I know how to do are incredible tools for people with stories to tell.
Yeah. That was one of the things that really got me, because you had said one of your, I think, and I don't know if I'm going to quote this correctly, but you said, make stories better by using technology. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that is exactly what I do. So if there's a formula, if you will, that I look for a great story that I know the technology I'm familiar with can make even better or more interesting or attractive. Answer questions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's really, that was really a great, a great thing that I read on that, is to help answer questions about that kind of stuff. And, um, one of the things that you also mentioned, I saw and again, going back and researching some of this stuff about you, one of the things you said is something that I have said, here on the show quite a bit. You said, with all of my projects, uh, the highlights are the people that I have met, worked with, and have learned from. And that's exactly how I approach this show. The highlight of the show is the people that I've met, like yourself, like Mike, like Shannon, and the insiders. It's these people who have been on my show and have taught me something, and I've learned from them. That's the benefit. That's the highlight to what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's the mainline gateway drug. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. I love the tech. I love going to places I haven't been. I love the experience, all of that. But yeah, absolute top of the list are the people you encounter along the way. Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Jan asked a question about your tattoo. I have to bring that up here real quick. She said, "Hey Pete, did you get that tat traditionally done? Was it painful?"
Yeah, and it hurt.
Ooh. Okay. I don't have any tattoos, so I don't know what it's like anyway. But
I was say, don't they all hurt a little?
Yeah, they all hurt.
Yeah.
But it's a funny. It's just because we're kind of a community here. I have this weird thing that I mark the life-altering projects that I do on my body.
Cool, that's cool. I like that. So it's definitely a way to remember them for sure. Also, yeah. So and I wasn't sure. What do you call? I've seen you. Your description of you being a technologist. Is that what you like to hail yourself as, a technologist?
Let's just say it's
company owner.
Let's just call it. It's the shortest thing I've been able to come up with, because what I do is what we just talked about. It's like I provide technology for storytellers. If you have a story to tell, I bet you I know ways to make it even better. So, yeah, technologist, storyteller, explorer, lunatic.
Well, you're also a diver. I was looking into many things there, and I found that you're actually a diver as well. So tell me about some of the things like shipwrecks and things that you've dove on before.
Oh, wow. Let's see. In no particular order, I did my certification dive in Micronesia on an island called Kosrae, Kosrae, incredibly beautiful place. And that dive was on a pirate ship wreck.
Really?
You can't make this stuff up. If anybody's interested, if you Google this guy named Bully Hayes,
Bully Hayes.
he's probably the worst human being that has ever drawn breath. I mean, murderer, blackbirder, slave runner, gun runner. I mean, you name it, this guy did it. And his cook had finally had enough, brained him with a frying pan, threw him overboard, fed him to the sharks, set his ship on fire, and it sank there on Gozer Land. That's where I did my. But from there, probably the most life-changing experience in the water. I'm one of a very select few who's done a number of dives on the Arizona and Pearl Harbor.
That's where I was headed next. Yep.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
That was life-changing. That was my favorite story about diving in Arizona is sitting there on the dock, all geared up, getting ready to get in the water for the first time. And one of the park rangers who was there, he could tell that I was pretty excited and, wow, I actually got to do this. And he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "So you ready to walk on the moon?" And I went, "What?" He said, "Nobody gets to do this. Nobody. The Navy does some training here and the super secret Navy guys do some training here. And once in a while, the archaeologists get in the water, but this is akin to walking on the moon." And
wow.
The result of that is my first dive. I think my tank lasted about 10 minutes because I was so thrilled to be there and to see these things that, nobody gets to see. And, I'm a veteran. So it's also a very special place. It's a war grave. And there are 900 guys who never got out of that ship. They're still in there. And, what an honor and a privilege to have that experience with them, if you will, at their resting place. It was just epic.
Thank you for your service. I'm a former Navy man myself, and when I saw that piece about the Arizona and I watched it, you were going down to make sure that the ship was, because it degrades. It's sitting in salt water, obviously, and it degrades over time. And I guess that was part of your job, was to go down and see how much it had degraded and what status it was in, I guess.
Yeah, that was basically it. Yeah, it was. I led a project to basically do a survey of the ship. We needed all the stakeholders, the Park Service, the Navy, the survivors, their families, the country, if you will. This is an incredibly important asset, historically, emotionally, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So when the project was to establish this baseline piece of data, which in this case happened to be three-dimensional sonar, underwater LiDAR, underwater photogrammetric data of the ship, that is now the baseline that all subsequent surveys forever will be measured against. So you can do what we call change detection. Is how is the ship changing, moving, flexing, collapsing? And, I've already mentioned a lot of the reasons why that's so important, but one of the big ones that is one of the most common questions asked there at the memorial is, you see the oil coming out of the ship,
right?
How much oil's in the ship? It's basically 500,000 gallons. She was fully fueled when she blew up and sank. So there is a huge environmental sort of time bomb that's ticking there. And that was part of it as well. Let's get the things surveyed so we can monitor change over time. And it was that feels really good because, my fingerprints are on that. And that's my kind of legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things you had mentioned during this, and folks, I found this out on it's out on YouTube if you'd like to go find it, and I also have a couple links down below. That Mr. Kelsey here has a website. It's called adventuresinrediscovery.com. The link is in the description below, and also the his website to his business, which is the vctolabs.com. That's there as well. So you can kind of get a little bit more information about this in the Arizona. One of the things that you had mentioned during your presentation that you were giving about it was the first ever integration. This is kind of what you had talked about it briefly just a moment ago, but the first ever integration between the terrestrial laser scanning, multi-beam side scan sonar, subsea LiDAR, diver portable and fixed sonar, and the photogrammetry, putting those all together. I mean, that's and you said this set has set the benchmark now for all these types of things going forward, I guess.
Well,
That's momentous.
yeah, that was a highlight for sure. It was, I would call it more of a pretty risky experiment because that integrating all those different data types hadn't happened before.
Right.
So there was a certain element of risk, as the project manager, I lost sleep thinking this had better work. If it doesn't, I'm dead.
Yeah. Wow.
But fortunately it worked. And that, that's another thing that I care a lot about, which is innovation. It's like that box, the think outside the box, that box they always tell you to think outside of. I often describe myself as I don't have a box. I just
What
don't.
box?
I'm wired. I love to take technology designed for one thing and see if it'll work for something else. Or like with the Arizona, let's take a whole bunch of different types of tech and see what happens when we mix them all together. So that's part of my that's part of my addiction to all this for sure.
Yep. Well, you and Eric Bard probably get along very well then, huh?
Eric is such a good friend and teacher, mentor, sensei. I mean, he's a whole lot smarter than I am, but he is just as, if not more curious than I am. Meaning, what would happen? Yeah, that's a crazy idea. Let's go scratch that itch. But then he'll say, "Wait a minute. It is an interesting idea. Let's slow down, pull back." I mean, you guys know Eric.
Yep.
He's very, very methodical.
Mm-hmm.
He is the scientific method courses through that guy's veins, and it's a great yin to my yang, if you will, because I'm just like, let's go. Oh, I got this crazy idea, and Eric will say, yes, but we're going to do it right. We're going to do it slow, and that he's just the greatest. It's like I said, he's become a good and trusted friend.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna delve into that in the Skinwalker Ranch team a little bit more here. But one last thing I wanted to say about the Arizona was during that video that I watched, you had found a cook pot on the bottom of the bay there, the harbor that was part of the Arizona, and you had, I guess, scanned it. Because of your scans, you were able to put together a 3D or a 3D printed version of it. Is that correct?
That is.
And then you showed it to, you were given a presentation to one of the people that was on the Arizona, I guess, was that, I forget exactly what his role was. I think he was a survivor from the Arizona, correct?
Yes.
You showed it to him during the presentation. He was kind of like trying to fit this all together. But when you handed him that piece, I mean, that was an emotional time. It was crazy.
It circles back to what we were talking about earlier, that the best part of these projects are the people you meet. And the gentleman you're talking about was Don Stratton, who has since passed away. But yeah, that was, it's funny. I can feel myself welling up because it was so powerful, because you're right. So for the folks listening, I had all the data from the Arizona, this beautiful, and specifically this cooking pot. And it was a known artifact. So it wasn't discovery. It was our job to document these artifacts. They are on the deck of the ship in the area of the galley. And so it was underwater photogrammetry, create this 3D model, then 3D print it. And I had Don at my laptop, and the room is full of media, cameras, people from all over, because everybody, including me, couldn't wait to show Don his ship after 75 something years.
Right.
And, didn't want to miss that moment. And so I'm showing him the data in the laptop, and Don, he's an old salt. He's like, yeah, that's cool. I recognize it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't reacting like I thought he would, but I had the 3D print of the pot with me, and I put it in his hand, and I have a picture of that somewhere. And he started to well up, and then all of us, the whole room, we just lost it. There wasn't a dry eye in the place.
Wow.
Because there was something about that tactile experience. A coworker of mine, again, much smarter than I'll ever be, he said, Pete, what you did is you went from analog, the real pot, to digital, the 3D model of the pot, back to analog, a real physical thing that you could then give Don an experience with. And I was just like, wow. Yeah. It was just epic. And that led to, my God, I got invited to the survivors party at the 75th anniversary.
Wow.
Which is nobody gets invited to. And it was I'm still so honored that I got to be there for that, and was invited by the survivors and the families, because without their approval, none of this would have happened, because obviously it means a whole lot to them. Yep. And I got to hand each of the survivors a 3D print of the entire ship.
Oh, wow.
And say, here's your ship, exactly as it looked like in October of 2016. And again, I barely got through that. I'm bawling like a baby. It was just so great. So
yeah, I can only imagine. Even watching that little, and again, folks, it's out there on YouTube if you want to find it. It was pretty easy to find for me. Just look at Pete Kelsey and the USS Arizona, and you'll find it there. But it was emotional just to watch it on on YouTube. It really was, and I commend you for your work on that. That was really that was something.
Actually, if I can, Jeff, just maybe take 30 seconds, because I'd like to share a story about Don.
Okay, please.
Because he, obviously, all the survivors matter. There are only actually 2 of them left who are still alive.
Oh, wow.
I've met them both, and incredible people to meet. Anyway, Don's story actually found its way into the movie Midway.
Oh, really?
Which is what, 3 or 4 years old now?
Yeah.
So there's a scene in the movie where the Arizona is hit, explodes, and is sinking and is on fire. And a couple of guys go across a heaving line to the ship next door.
Right.
One of those guys was Don Stratton.
Oh, really?
That's his actual true story.
Oh, wow.
So he was burned over, I think it's 80% of his body. He's literally on fire with one other guy at his battle station. This guy throws him a heaving line. They tie it off, and hand over hand go through flames and horror, and he lived. And spent a year in the hospital, went home, medical discharge, and get this, he re-enlisted and went back and served on the destroyer until the end of the war. I mean, it's just so. What an honor to meet that guy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And just like Jim said, they're the greatest generation for sure. Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's an incredible story. I had no idea that was him, and that, portraying that scene in the movie, that was him going, oh wow.
Yeah, that's really, really something. And his, there's so many stories. There's a new USS Arizona, by the way.
Oh, is there?
It's going to be a submarine. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And one of Don's, I think I hope I get this right, I think his granddaughter is going to be at the launching of it. Yeah. It's really just cool. So
wow, that is cool. That's a great story. And again, like you mentioned before, just meeting these people and you get pulled into their story by what you're doing, and that's just amazing. It truly is.
Yeah.
You also spent some time with the Iowa, also, right? You did something with the USS Iowa.
Yeah, that was what a cool place. So the Iowa, the last battleship, if you will, the Iowa, the first of the Iowa class battleships, which were the last ones.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 of them. They're all floating museums, of course. There's the Iowa, the Wisconsin, the New Jersey, and the Missouri. And the Iowa is in the San Pedro. It's basically Los Angeles, an amazing museum, just like all 4 of them are. Right. Go see them if you're a Navy World War II history nut like I am. All of them are worth the trip. But the Iowa was a project where I thought everybody who goes to the Iowa or any one of the Iowa class battleship museums, you see the guns, and that's where you want to go. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me in that turret and let me see how these huge guns, that's where everybody wants to go. Well, you can't. It's confined space. It's dark and slippery, and there's a million ways to get hurt in there. And I raised my hand and reached out to my friend Mike there, who basically runs sort of the engineering part of the operation there, and said, Mike, what if we virtualized one of the turrets to give people a virtual experience of the space, because it's where everybody wants to go.
Right.
And, kudos to Mike. He said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So a couple of friends and I with laser scanners, and actually we flew some LiDAR as well of the ship. But we got I forget, it's either 5 or 7 decks. Those turrets are amazing bits of engineering. And of course, fun part for me is because we're doing the scanning, I'm behind the velvet ropes and I got to see it all.
Yeah.
It brings out the 9-year-old in me who used to make models of, battleships and stuff. So it was a great one.
Wow. Preserving history. Pretty
cool
stuff.
For sure. And you know what? The virtual stuff is really cool too, because I mean, I've got a VR headset and I get into some of that stuff, and there's so much more than just games. Everybody thinks, oh, it's just playing games. No, there's a lot more to it than just, and again, there's a point right there that I'm going to have to see if I can find that, and, with the VR, because I would love to see that myself, because it's so realistic when it's like you're standing there. It truly is when you're using the VR headsets. And I'm going to have to find that now and see if I can do that.
Well, I don't know if the guys at the Iowa ever made it public or whatnot, but the data exists, and it's you can do impossible stuff like, it's a 16-inch gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, virtually you can go right down the barrel. Impossible things. It's a line I use a lot, both on and off camera, is making the invisible visible.
Yeah, truly. That's got to be such satisfying work that you're doing. It really does. We talked about the Easter Island a little bit, and we kind of skimmed over that a little bit at the end there. You were talking about Sonia that you met, and um, I just wanted to kind of touch back on that just for a moment to say, when you were there, you did a scan of the entire island. Was that how it went? And you did the working with the statues as well, or?
Yeah, there was part of the effort was I wanted a model, a three-dimensional model of the entire island because it's not very big, which we were able to put together mostly from existing data that I was able to beg, borrow, or steal or find out on the web. But the scanning was the moai, the statues were definitely part of it. You don't go to Easter Island with laser scanners and not do the moai. But we also went out to, they're called the motu, which are the sub-islands, these tiny little rocks that stick up out of the ocean. And there were caves out there that people have obviously been living in and working in. And, I learned from the archaeologists that there is an amazing source of obsidian out there, which they use to make cutting tools.
Right.
And so to see this huge pile that's probably took centuries, if not millennia, to create, of people sitting out there on this rock carving, tools.
Wow.
It was really, really something. We did a lot of work in what they're known as the rock gardens. It's like, okay, Easter Islands is famous for a lot of things, but here is it's called the collapse theory. Here's a civilization that basically vanished.
Right.
And the talking points are typically, they would fish and they would, eat seabirds, but then they cut down all the trees, probably to help make and transport the statues. Well, you cut down all the trees and you can't make canoes and you can't go fishing. So then they eat all the seabirds until the seabirds are gone. And then they start eating each other. So it was part of the project was to figure out, to identify what are known as rock gardens. They just look like a big field of volcanic rock that you wouldn't think anything would grow out of, but they did. They grew a lot of taro out of these rock gardens. And that was sort of a new and controversial theory, if I remember this right, back then. And I wanted to help Sonia and her team, make that case, make that argument. So it was great. It's such a magical place for so many reasons. One of the things as a diver that few people know about Easter Island is that the ocean around it is virtually sterile.
Oh, really?
So for a diver, this is some of the clearest water in the world, anywhere. Wow. So for the divers out there, if you can get your head around this, the visibility is 300 feet.
Wow.
It's like floating in glass. It's just wild.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway,
were you able to scan some of the statues? I know have carvings on the back, and as we've seen recently, sometimes there's things the naked eye can't see that those scans can bring to light. Were you able to get anything scanned close up?
I'm trying to think if we did specifically on the statues. There is a well-known statue there at the quarry where all the statues come from. It's called Rano Raraku. There's a well-known moai there that has graffiti on it. And we know it's graffiti because it's a tall ship, 3 masts, a whole bunch of sails. But I remember petroglyphs in a few caves we went in of a likeness. His name's Make, and he was the highest of the high in terms of their deities. And that was a great tool for laser scanning, because you're absolutely right, Mike, that it for rock art, petroglyphs specifically, it's an amazing tool for making the invisible visible, because you can exaggerate the data in terms of depth. So things that might only have like a millimeter of depth, what would it look like if we stretched that to 10 millimeters? And then, whoa, that's clearly man-made art. I mean, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, it's definitely brought out some of those types of things. And we're gonna, why a couple of people asked that question. Why is the water sterile? Do you know?
Well, and forgive me, that might be a poor choice of words on my part. I am not a marine biologist. It's my understanding is that it's because this is the most remote inhabited island in the world. It is like dead center between Santiago, Chile, and Tahiti. I mean, it is 1,500 miles in any direction to the nearest landmass. I mean, it's so isolated. So there's not a whole lot out there. So I'm sure it has to do with current and, its location, things beyond my understanding. But there is not a whole lot of stuff in the water there, which makes the water incredibly clear. It's also, when the weather's perfect, there could be 12-foot swells. And that's because there's nothing between Tahiti and the island to knock that wave down to something smaller.
Wow.
So fascinating place.
It is. And it's so fascinating how you think of people how did they ever get there in the first place? So it's so out of reach of everything. It's like, it must have been purely accidental that they ended up there in the first place. That's amazing. The Easter Island is it's a story to be told. And there's so much information out there that can be dug up on it, I'm sure. But let's jump into get a little bit, I know a lot of the folks that are here are either insiders, or as Mike Owen here has got me when I went to Phenomicon, in last September, he told me, he says, Jeff, you really got to check out this whole Bigfoot stuff, because you're going to find that now this team at Expedition Bigfoot is very their backgrounds of these people, Russell Accord, Dr. Mariah Mayer, and Ronnie LeBlanc and Bryce, their backgrounds are very credible people. They are I was amazed listening to Dr. Mariah Mayer when she got up and gave her talk about her background. Just amazing people. And so that got me started on that. And again, I started going back and watching the show again, and boom, there you are. And you're out there doing a scanning of this area and I forget the actual name of this area where you were doing it. And I watched this portion. I watched this episode a few times, in the portion that you were in there. You had quite an experience. Tell us a little bit about, if you would, what you can. I know that there's NDAs involved. So what the things that you can tell us about the parts that were aired. First of all, how did you come about? Did they reach out to you and say, "Come on out and take a look at this"? I mean, how did that all get started?
Yeah. I'm trying. Actually, I'm trying to remember how the Bigfoot thing started. I didn't know anybody there, so they must have reached out to me. I'm sure that's what happened. But I'll be honest with that one. I was like, I'm not sure this is for me, but let's talk. So the more I talked with the producers, I knew, my lights went off. It's like, I think I can help you. So one of my ideas, which I think is what you're alluding to, was there's this, it's something that it's very common in laser scanning, the use of LiDAR, and the industry term is ghosting.
Yes.
And ghosting, frankly, is an enormous pain in the ass. It is what it means is is if I've got the scanner going and somebody walks through my scan, they ghost through the scan, and I have to clean all that stuff up. It's miserable work. I hate it. Everybody who does what I do hate it. Everybody hates ghosting. Well, my idea to the producers was, if we just went out where you think there's been activity and I have the scanner running, if anything walks through the path or moves through the path, whatever, if there's any kind of motion, because LiDAR hates motion, that motion, whether it's tree moving in the wind, anything, it will ghost, and we'll see it. And they were like, "Oh, we have to try that." I'm like, "Cool, let's go."
Yep.
So the rest of it, the rest of what happened, you see in the show. We were out the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. It's like I was always wondering, are you guys doing this to me on purpose? Middle of nowhere, middle of the night, are you guys going to murder me and take my stuff? And then, now you can laser scan without me.
Right, yeah.
I'm kidding.
They won't know how to use it, but yeah, they can, yeah.
And sure enough, we're out there walking in the woods, and loud noise of like a branch breaking scared the bejesus out of me, because it's so quiet and so remote, and the loud noise. I damn near had an accident.
Well, I've got a couple of pictures I want to show real quick too, and this was I grabbed these from the episode.
Yeah.
And this is where you got on the phone. This is after the fact. And I heard that when you were actually walking along with the cameraman there and you were scanning, and you stopped and you said, "Did you hear that?" And he was like, "What did you see?" And so you were trying to describe what you had seen, and then when you got back to the car, and I'm going to show those pictures here in just a moment, but you got back to the vehicle here, and you were talking to Bryce, and you were explaining to him of what you had seen, and you were saying, you could see, I could tell from watching this that this wasn't some you weren't doing theatrics here. You weren't trying to be an actor and portray somebody that was scared. You could tell that you were shaken up by the experience that you just had.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it was. It scared the bejesus out of me, and then, great. I'm like, we have to look at the data. You can see in the picture you had up before. We're at the tailgate of the one of the crew members' cars or something, and I'm like, we can look at this really quick. I need like 20 minutes to download it and process. Let's have a look. And then, that was true. I remember, I'll be honest with you, when I first saw that, I was thinking my career is over. Either I'm going to be labeled a crackpot, or, I'm on the take with a production company or whatever. It was my very first thought. It's like, I'll never work again. But there you have it. There's something that looked like it does. I don't want to even put words in anybody's mouth.
Yeah.
There was something there that ghosted in the data. That, hey, it's there. Right. And the obvious questions to me are, have you ever seen this before? No. And I would go into some dialogue about ghosting, and here's what ghosting is and why it happened. No. It was crazy. That was my second reaction was, wow, am I having a mini stroke or losing my mind, or, because I can't say that I do it every time, but I always try when something like this happens. let's stick with a reasonable first, because this
Yes.
is technology, right? Is there something wrong with the scanner? Did I screw something up in the post-processing? Is there some logical, reasonable, perfect explanation for this?
Right. Yep.
But every once in a while, when you see something like this, you go,
Yeah.
wow.
The interesting part to me was, if you've watched the show and seen the different episodes, it seems like most of the time, whatever is out there making noise around the folks that are out in the field, it's always just at the edge of being seen, whether they're using thermal or infrared or high-powered flashlights. They can never see it. They can hear it. Sometimes they can smell it, but they have a hard time seeing it. And you bring in this completely different technology, and boom, there it is.
Yeah.
Something. There's
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, something.
Whatever,
And again,
whatever it was,
Yep.
It showed up. And it was just really nice to see. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of like that show is they're really good about using a lot of different technology, whether it's different drones for surveillance or the LiDAR. They're trying different things to see if there's any way to, progress that story and figure out what's really going on. There's enough evidence to know that there's something out there. We don't know what it is. So let's keep trying and try different things and see what may come up. This was, to me, a fantastic catch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Kat mentioned it right here too. And grabbing my pictures here, it wasn't the best, but if you watch the episode, you can see that. And there's another screenshot that I didn't capture that's right after this one, where you can see like 3 ghosted images. It's kind of faded, a little bit brighter and a little bit brighter, and it looks like something was actually moving through the time frame of Pete's scan. And again, we don't know, we don't have a clue what it is. I mean, but man, oh man, this is
the only thing that I know for sure that it's compelling.
yes, there you go. That's perfect. It is very compelling. Yeah. But that was, I forget which I think that was episode number 1 or 2.
3.
I think it was a 3 episode in season 3, episode 3. So go check that out, folks, if you want to. But Pete was there doing his work, and you can see, truly see that he was shook up during that that portion there. I mean, you heard it first, and then you went back and looked at what you may have captured, and sure enough, there was something there. So I don't know. That's very, like you said, very compelling.
Yeah.
Have they invited you back?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I know you probably can't talk about some of that, but I was just curious if you're.
Well, same season I did. It's something I'm intensely proud of, because it's, at the risk of sounding like I'm beating my chest, I guess there's no way around that. We did an episode, it is aired, where I had this idea, the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Ah, yes, there you go.
Episode 13.
My gosh, Mike.
He knows them very well.
This was, before I even start talking about it, the reason I'm so proud of it is because this is probably the most interesting, just bloody cool, forensic project I've ever done that I'm not sure a whole lot of people are even aware of. So what was it? I had this idea that I mentioned to the producers, and I said, the Patterson-Gimlin film, as soon as they told me that it's the second most watched film in history, second only to the Zapruder film, the film of the Kennedy assassination. Wow. Everybody knows the PG film. Everybody. It's right. It's where all the icons of Bigfoot have come from, and that mid stride pose. It's all from the PG film. So I said, look, I am aware of technology. Let me back up. I just put it to him a question. What if I could tell you how tall that critter in the PG film is? And they went, you can do that? And I went, yeah, I can. I know how to do it.
Referred to as Patty.
Yeah, it's Patty, right. And so they're like, oh, that's great. Let's go. And I said, and oh, by the way, everything else in that sequence we can measure, length of her forearm, how big's her stride, anything you can see. Basically, I can tie that to real world geometry. And how we did that is we went to the film site way out in the woods, and I actually had Bryce do the scanning, which was so cool, because he was like, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, Bryce, come on, man. It's really simple, and you should do this. You should do the scan. And he did it. And that gave us the real geometry to then match up. The process is called, or at least used to be called, perspective matching, where you match the perspective in the film to the perspective in the scan data. And the only way that would work is if we had known items, if you will, in both the film and the scan. And I don't want to, for those who haven't seen that episode, we did that. There are trees 50 years later that are still there that you can see in the PG film that we used to establish that reality in terms of geometry. And we know how tall Patty was. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
that area changed so much too, because it was, at 1967, I think they'd said that a flood had just gone through that creek. So it had wiped out a bunch of stuff. There was some debris, piles of debris here and there, but it was pretty wide open. And now it's very overgrown.
Yeah.
So the fact that you found anything that is still there is remarkable.
Yeah.
The time is, going to consume that space, and we may never have been able to know that before. So amazing that you're able to do that.
Yeah, that was, like I said, I'm pretty proud of that one. That's true forensic science, right? There's no, that's where, the line between, a really popular television show and, hardcore science gets really clear. And that just, I don't know. I feel good about that one.
Yeah. I was going to say, I thought I had something real quick that I could show everybody, a picture from, I'm on your website right now, taking a look at some of the pictures and things that are out here. And I tell you, it's amazing. But I thought I had seen a picture of it here, and I know it's here somewhere, but I don't want to spend too much time digging for it. But yeah, that whole scene there, that, being able to go out there and actually say how big, after all these years. And that's the beauty of the LiDAR, is to be able to then remove that layer of, I guess, the foliage of trees or whatever, and get a look at it. That's amazing. It truly is.
Yeah, that was cool. And again, from the people perspective, that was basically Bryce's scene. And it was so fun watching Bryce, because he's a good guy, genuinely curious. All the things that attract me, and he just couldn't get enough. And watching him, wow, this is the Patterson-Gimlin film site. Wow. And it was fun, because I don't know who was out geeking the other, because I knew where we were, and of course I knew the PG film, and it was just a great experience, as always, from the people place, if you will, as well.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go ahead.
Which reminds me, you mentioned Phenomicon. I was supposed to go.
Oh, really?
And I wanted to go. I was registered to go, because I was thinking, will I be the only person there who's worked on both shows?
I think so.
With all the cast members, and I was like, I gotta go. And I was so disappointed I couldn't. I can't remember what it was, but I got some paying gig that I couldn't say no to, so I didn't make it. But
Right.
I am sorry I missed it.
It was great. I went to it. Once I became Linda is the one who actually told me about being. She saw the thing about being an insider before I did, and then so I looked into it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. She's like, you need to do this, and then that's when I found out about Phenomicon, and then of course talking with Thomas and stuff, and he's been on. I have had Thomas and Eric on the show before, and then working with Thomas, and he mentioned it also. He's very big in starting a Phenomicon. But yeah, that's where I went out and met some great people out there, and it was phenomenal. Yeah, I met Jim. There's Jim right there. I met Jim and Roger out there, and it was really great. I would have loved to have seen you out there. That would, because you're right. You're the guy who's been on both TV shows that were very well shown there, with all the represented there, I should say,
Yeah.
with all the cast members and everything. So yeah. All right, it's going to be on again next year. It's September, the weekend after Labor Day, again next year. So, or this
in Vernal again?
Yeah, it's in Vernal again. Yeah, Phenomicon 2023 will be in Vernal.
Gonna write that down.
Yeah, I think it's the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, or 6th. I don't know. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's the week after Labor Day weekend. So. Yeah. And I'll be there for sure. Again, this year. I think Mike's going, right? Mike, you're going to be there?
We're going to try. We're going to try. That's a long drive.
Yeah.
Longer drive for you, I know, but it's a long drive.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed being out there. And speaking of which, that's the thing about being an insider as well. And I gotta throw this out there and kind of pump this for just a moment, because you're an insider, Pete. And of course, Mike is actually one of the moderators for, with Shannon, moderator for the Insiders group there on Facebook. And that's a place, and most of the people that are in here are probably insiders as well, but that's a place where we get to actually interact with the cast members of the show. We just recently had a Q&A. They do Q&As all the time. Eric's on there quite often. We were talking with Eric again today. Bryant was there today. Dragon, he was in there chatting it up with us, and Caleb did a little thing at 5:00 today where he was showing some stuff happening to his phone while he was actually doing his police work. And this happens all the time. And there was a segment here not too long ago where they did a Q&A where everybody was there, and Brandon was there, and you were there. And you guys were all talking, and you were doing some work out there. And I know we can't talk about that too much, but you were doing some work out there. This is away from the filming season. You were out there working, and we were given access to this information and shown pictures of your scans that you had done. And it was like, oh my gosh, we're getting information and seeing pictures that would be normally, covered up and hidden until airtime on the TV show. But yet as insiders, we're getting access to this. And you were out there explaining it. And it was just absolutely great. So for those of you watching that are not an insider, you really got to check it out. The link is in the description below to go out and check out being an insider. And like I said, we were talking with, Bryant today, Dragon, of course, and Thomas, and was out shoveling snow. They were shoveling it, and Eric was out shoveling snow off the helipad today. And, he's like, oh, I don't want anybody to watch me shoveling snow, so he turned the cameras away.
He wasn't wearing flip-flops again, was he?
Yeah, he ran out there in
flip-flops one time.
It really is a cool thing, and I'm so glad that you're part of that too. Yeah, Eric, he's shoveling snow right now. Okay. He should be watching this, is what he should be doing. I seen him pop in a little while ago. We saw something in the chat pop up and said that was probably Eric, because when he says something, it comes over as Skinwalker Ranch. That when he's inside there talking with people. Anyway, that's one of the really cool things about that. So, segueing right into Skinwalker Ranch and the things that you've done out there, I have to ask you about the end of, I think it was the season where you went out and you did a scan. This wasn't with the LiDAR. This was Yeah, for grammetry. Yeah, photogrammetry. You went out and you did a scan. Now, one thing I want to ask you about this, the scanning process with the drone. Do you pre-program the drone to actually do the lawnmower action and going back and forth, and you just tell
Yeah.
it and you let it go?
Yes.
You're not flying at every moment of that flight, correct?
No, I've flown old school, with my thumbs a few times, but typically you only take over if you have to, if there's a problem or an emergency or something.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about that because it seemed like it might have been something that was pre-programmed, which I think is great. And again, I'm hoping because we saw this on the show, and after it was done, the data was put together. Eric had a presentation in the command center there with everybody, and he was showing what they had found. And I'm going to show the picture here.
Yes.
This was a picture that was shown on the episode for us all to see. And what it looked like to me was that it had taken some of the pictures and it for whatever reason, and I'm going to let you explain this as best you can with it. It looked like it put these pictures into this form, standing up 100 feet in the air from from the ground. What happened here? What was that?
That is a very good question. The short answer is, I don't know. I literally don't know. I remember when Eric showed this to me, same question. Pete, have you ever seen this before? No, I have not. And I have been doing, this is photogrammetry, as Mike said, drone-based photogrammetry. I've been doing drone-based photogrammetry since, let's see, at least 2014, maybe before.
Can you explain exactly what it is?
Yeah. So photogrammetry, my favorite explanation is anyone with any camera can take a series of photographs of anything, and then the photogrammetry software will stitch all those photographs together and give you these really rich, beautiful three-dimensional models. Now that is, the 30,000 foot view. To get a little more granular about it, in terms of what is so impressive about the technology to me is the software. You imagine the computer processing power that's required to do what I'm about to say. It looks at every pixel in every photo and looks for similarities. That is intense, especially with this particular flight. This was like 30, I want to say 32,000 images.
Wow.
And 27, 25-ish megabytes a piece. That is extraordinary. It was so big and such a monumental computing task. I couldn't do it on my laptop. We had to do it. Eric had to do it there at the command center on that unbelievable workstation he has there. Thank God he has it, or else it wouldn't be possible at all.
Right.
The drone is reliant on GPS, but the stitching together of the pictures is not reliant on GPS. That's done by matching pixels.
The whole process uses RTK GPS from the drone.
Okay.
So all of that data is spatial, meaning
gotcha.
It's tied to the ground. You can get a lat long elevation for any of it. But yeah, that was, and Eric saw it before I did because I didn't get to do the processing. I couldn't.
Right.
And he's like, Pete, I need to talk to
you. Yeah, because something, it seems like, and you made the comment, you've never seen your equipment do anything like this before, correct?
That's correct.
And so it looked like what it had done was, because it felt that there was something there, it was taking pictures that were obviously taken of the ground, and it somehow put them into this form that we see in the photograph there. It's I don't know. It goes back to the whole thing about how they kept talking about there being some sort of an anomaly, and it just kind of reinforces that, talking about some sort of anomaly there that they kept talking about a mile high, or so many 1,000 feet above the mesa, or above the ranch, that was they were having all these weird things happening. GPS is going nuts, and again, GPS being used by the drone, um, to cause them issue with things, and there it is. I mean, now we're seeing are we seeing a picture of that same anomaly? I don't know. There was another one taken, and this was the one looking back towards it, and you can see in the background here, you can see the top of the one that's on the bottom, not up on the mesa, and then this one here is actually on the mesa, and it's right there by the stone circle, the little swirl of stones that were up there, up on top of the mesa. And so it did it twice in two different areas, and they're both areas of interest on the ranch. It's just, how in the world did it do that? Yeah, just amazing.
Well, and I loved. I think it's in that episode. I can't remember, Eric or Travis. Somebody makes the observation that, wow, they line up. Meaning, and for me, as an old civil engineer, land surveying guy, that's where I spent earlier part of my career.
Mhm.
I was like, what's that bearing?
Ah, yeah.
Show me the bearing. I want that compass bearing. Maybe it points to something interesting,
Mhm.
or maybe it's just, maybe it's nothing. Who knows? But yeah, that is again, wow, is that compelling?
Yeah,
Now,
it truly
could it
is.
be logically explained as a software or a hardware thing? Maybe, of
Yeah,
course. I have to consider that. I have
yep.
to.
Sure.
Um, have we involved, the vendors? What's going on here? Yep. Um, but it remains, as far as I know, it remains
Mystery.
compelling. Yeah,
Yeah,
a mystery.
very. Yeah, yeah, especially when you put the fact of, like I said, they have come up with so many things that they have triangulated a anomalous things that they found with the GPS dropping the bottles. They had the GPS trackers, and this is all that stuff that Eric makes all the time. Oh, I'll make these up, and he's in there building these circuit boards and whatnot. But they put these in the bottles. They were dropping them down, and there was a couple of them. It looked like it went down and bounced off of something, and then went off to the side. All those, everything that they've come up with, some sort of anomalies in that same area, and then you have your photogrammetry showing something there. And again, is it proof? No, it's not. But like you said, it sure is compelling that they've had these other instances proving that there's something, showing that there's something there, and now you have actual picture of it. I don't know. What can a person make of that? I don't know. That, yeah. SB Hink said, "Is it repeatable?" I don't know. It would be fun to try to go back and do another scan and see if it happens again. Something like that. I don't know. They need to bring you
I
back.
agree. I agree. I agree. It ain't science if it's not repeatable.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's forgive the sidebar, but that is the place. That is the thing about that place. And I don't mean to oversell this. I mean, I speak from experience. If ever I develop like a twitch in my right eye, like from the Pink Panther character,
I know what you're.
Inspector Dreyfus. So if
Yes.
ever I,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
ever I, develop a twitch, that's the ranch, because that place, I've never been so consistently mystified, frustrated, embarrassed, angry. I mean, it's the place. But at the end of the day, where I typically wind up is, frankly, is just humbled, because that place will test you. It really will. I think I saw a question, have I lost drones there, or how many?
Yeah, that's where I was headed next
The
too.
count stands at 3.
Wow, really?
Yeah. 3 drones, and they weren't cheap. And I can own definitely one I lost, which was my mistake. Pilot error. I flew into a power line, but the odds of that happening still are so astronomical. It just bad luck. Wow, flew into a power line. But the first one is actually no, the second drone I lost is actually on the Insiders channel, and Thomas and Eric talk about it. That was that was a strange day. That was, off season, because I've been there a bunch of times, and sometimes the crew is there shooting the show, and sometimes they're not, and that's a point I think that's well talked about by others, but I will add to that chorus that, look, whether the cameras are rolling or not, Brandon and the team are on the case. The work doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It goes on constantly.
Yeah. And that's what you learn through the Insider program, is that, you think you see a lot on the TV show. You don't see hardly anything on the TV show. There's so much more you learn through that Insider program of the rest of the story. The stat that they give of, what is it, 0.87% of all the film footage actually makes it on the show.
Yes.
So
the rest of that is what you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes those stories are even more compelling than the stuff that we see on the show. So the show is just a small window into what really goes on the ranch. It's just always one more question or two more questions every time you try something. And my suspicion is the whole repeatability thing, the ranch isn't going to let that happen. It'll always throw you a curveball, one way or another.
Yeah, it's I've been hit by a few of those curveballs, and it's I'll say it again. It can be really humbling, because you really have to just, once you sort of get over, pardon me, the WTF did I just see, or what happened to my gear, or looking at data and going, what? Then, and thank God for Eric Bard and, some of the other guys just saying, take a deep breath. Let's think about this. Let's be methodical about it. Let's try to figure this out. And what a great segue to add my kudos to the Insider program, because Brandon has said it many times and much more eloquently than I can, but is there another place or project or research endeavor, whatever you want to call it, that has opened the kimono in such a way?
Nope.
If there is, I'm not aware of it. So I would agree. No, there's not. Yeah. And wow, how cool is that, right? That's because it's so logical, right? If call it 5-6 guys, and maybe, family members or good friends of the cast, or, whatever it is, a fixed number of people looking through all of this information versus letting everybody look, an infinite amount of eyeballs on the data. I mean, the logic is so clear. It's kudos to Brandon and the guys for saying, yeah, that's the smart way to do this. I also think it brings real credibility to it.
It does. Yeah.
Because I'll speak speaking for myself. If there was anything contrived or there was bullshit going on, and this is all entertainment and there's no science at all, I would have walked off set 3 years ago. I would have nothing to do with it.
Yep.
My most valuable resource is my reputation, and I do a lot of other projects outside of Skinwalker Ranch that could be negatively affected if I got labeled some kind of a crackpot fanatic, whatever. So I love that. I am all about the insiders. You said I'm a member. I don't tune in as often as I'd like to, but wow, these are dedicated, professional, curious people who are paying attention all the time. And that's just so cool. And unique.
Yeah, it is very
24/7 and around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's international.
Of course, it's the internet, Pete. Wake up, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. It truly is. And there's so many people in there from so many different countries, and we all get to meet and talk with each other. Now they've got the Discord channel going where we can actually sit and talk with each other. And again, there's Eric in there, and he is one of the best teachers. I don't think he sees himself as a teacher, but he is, and he's over there, working on something and explaining things to us. And I came up with an idea one day. I was talking about, we were in there talking, and I said something about, an experiment that I would like to do in Homestead too. Well, he popped in. We didn't even know he was listening. He was listening, and he popped in and he said, tell me a little bit more about this. How would you see this going down? And so he started asking me questions, having me explain myself, like a teacher would. And so I did, and he was starting to put that together. And it's one of those things where, as you said earlier, no one else is doing this. No other reality show or anything like this is happening. These guys are at the forefront of this sort of access to a group of people doing experiments that is unparalleled right now. They're the pioneers in this thing. And kudos to the guys that run it. The David and Ryan, the guys over at that put all this together at 360 Works. I mean, it's amazing that we get to do this. And I thank I thank them every day that we get to have this kind of access and help, like you said, help Eric and the team with this experiment. There's so much data. There's so much to do and see. He's now bringing us into the fold, and now we are part of it as well. All of the insiders.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's so much fun. It's well worth the money. I got
and that, it all harkens back to what we talked about at the top, which was the people you meet and this sense of, community. And it's in this case, it's just smart. It's just logical. I could spend the rest of my life looking at the data I've collected at the ranch and miss anything, right? It's an overwhelming amount of information. So, I selfishly hope, I bet a lot of insiders do as well, that at some point, because the genie ain't going back in the bottle. The insiders are here, the kimono's open, Brandon and Eric and the rest of the guys have all said, join us, which is fabulous. You can't turn that off. And if you think about it statistically, almost mathematically, the odds that some big breakthrough discovery, whatever it is, some amazing moment, statistically is going to be seen by the insiders.
Yeah.
Because there's tens of thousands of them watching 24/7, whereas the show shoots for what, 3 months?
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So
and we see only a portion of that. Yeah.
Right, a small portion.
So if I was a betting man, I'd put all my money on the insiders in terms of where a breakthrough or a discovery is going to happen.
Well, there's been a lot of things that we have seen, and that's what's so, there's James Keenan. He's there now. He's piping in on a few comments here, which is, and I think, I've had James has been on the show here, and again, shared with us some fantastic information that he has collected out in that area and all the work that he is doing. And I appreciate him being here tonight talking about these very things. But it's you're absolutely right when you say that, because we're spending more time watching and observing than the TV, people would ever go. And you see that, and you mentioned something about the credibility earlier. That particular Q&A that you were involved in, that Brandon was there. And I'll just say this again. I think I mentioned it when I did an Insiders Insights show, but Brandon got very passionate about what he is doing here. And when we all, I mean, he was very vocal about, his involvement and the money he has spent and the reputation on the line and everything else. He said, "Do you think I would be doing this if I didn't believe in this?" I mean, he was, and you were sitting right there next to him, and it was like, so we all know it's not about the money. It's not about some, oh, I'm going to be a celebrity. I'm going to be on TV and be a celebrity. None of these guys feel like that at all. And yet they're out there trying to solve a great, great mystery. And I think that you're right. It is going to be the insiders that get to see this when it does come out. We saw Lucy, we call it Lucy. It's the orb, Lucy the orb, that was floating around inside Homestead too. Things like that. I mean, it was all spotted, and UAPs that we've seen moving across, and just all kinds of stuff. Anyway, we could go on and on about it, but it's just, it's one of those things where, people, if you haven't tried it, you should try it out. There's a free trial. It does cost. There is a free trial. You get to try it out for a month, I think, or something like that, and see what you think about it. But it's a really a great thing, and we will be the ones, I think, that help solve this with the team. So,
and I'm going to give a shout out to Brandon, and that kind of passion, dedication, commitment. Yeah, he wears it on his sleeve. Yeah. He is absolutely committed to this, oftentimes at great expense. So, that old adage among small business owners, no one cares like the owner. No one cares like the owner.
Very true.
And he desperately wants, and now tens of millions of other people want. We all want the same thing, which is just understanding. So whether that passion is sort of quiet and the Eric Bards of the world, to me is just as attractive as overt, passion that from Brandon. To me it's the same thing. It's like, look, this is exploration, right?
Yep.
It's science, and both are ugly, and everybody involved understands that there are going to be people who say, if you go there, you're going to sail off the end of the earth, right? That's the nature of exploration. That's always going to happen. They're always going to be there. But what I love about this group of people, there's a great speech from Teddy Roosevelt that I've loved. It's called The Man in the Arena from 1917. And he basically just says, kudos to the folks who step out and ask the difficult questions and take the chance. And shame on, what does he call them? The cold and timid souls who will never know victory or defeat. And that's how I look at this. It's like, my selfish interest is, how cool would it be to have played a tiny little part in some great discovery, or even a small discovery, just to answer a question that's on everybody's mind. I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I'm an insider. maybe I can be part of that little
Yep.
piece as
Yep.
well, you
Yep.
know, and getting to watch the screens and seeing. I saw a UAP and I've recorded it. It's on the spreadsheet that Shannon works so hard on, but it's on there as well. And we, many people have spotted something like that. But yeah, it's I think we all would like to be part of that, and we are part of that, and hopefully that
Yep.
will transcend and we will actually help get some answers.
The
One
other
thing
thing
I
that I
got to
think is
go ahead.
is really really nice about the insider group is that it's a safe space.
Yeah. Yes. Good
Anybody's
point.
view is welcome because
Yep.
we have to have that. We
Yep.
have to have that diversity of thought, and I think that's what you see Eric loving so much is the different ideas that come out, different theories, and it's okay to bring up whatever you think it might be
Yep.
because nobody knows. So you could be right. Anybody could be right.
Yeah.
So go ahead and throw a theory out there. Throw out an experience that you think this may be related to. I think that's a huge benefit to.
That's a great point. I totally agree with that, Mike. That is something I still struggle with. And again, it comes back to humility. Like I've been, I'll hear what initially sounds like the most ridiculous, crazy, mind-bending, theory. And, training myself to just wait. That would be really offensive if you just said, that is utter nonsense. Are you crazy? Whatever, something dismissive like that. So, I remain a work in progress because I struggle with that every day. And I just, I watch Eric because Eric, to your point, he'll like, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah, he really is. So that's a great point, Mike. It truly is. And and that's the thing. What did Travis say when he first got out to the ranch? The guys make fun of him about this all the time. When he first got out to the ranch and he was invited to come out there, and pardon my language, freak people on the show, we try to keep this clean. But when Travis first got out there, he said, "You guys are batshit crazy." But then he got involved and then he started seeing and the results of their experiments and everything. And now he's 100% into solving this, helping to solve this mystery with Eric and everybody else. So yeah, there you go. So he came out there. Here you got a rocket scientist come out there to help, and now he's involved right in the middle of it, and he's there to stay. Some people were asking if he's going to come back. Oh yeah, he'll be back out there, no doubt about it. We've seen him on the some of the Q&As that they have here during the off season that we all get to participate in. All right, I tell you what, we're getting on time here, but Pete, before we go, I have to ask you this question: what is on the horizon for Pete Kelsey now and your company, VCTO Labs? I mean, what kind of big things you got happening that you are allowed to tell us about?
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the permission to talk about it.
Oh, I know. Okay,
always a challenge.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I put you in that position, but I know some of the stuff isn't all TV show related. I know you do a lot of other things, and again, I'll mention folks to go out and check out adventuresinrediscovery.com. The link is down there below. You'll see the ongoing list of things that Pete has been involved in, and I'm sure that's not even all of it. But I mean, tell us a little bit. I mean, besides a TV show that you might be working with that you can't talk about, what you got going on?
Let's see. I have. Let me think about this.
And I kind of put you on the spot on this one.
I've been working with a company called Search, and they are essentially the largest archaeological services company in the world. And they are, wow, do they have their hands in some of the coolest stuff. So the things that I have done that are public, we can talk about. So Search was on the icebreaker. They had a staff person on the icebreaker that found the Endurance, Shackleton's ship.
Wow.
few months ago, which
Yes.
anybody who knows anything about exploration and adventure, oh my God,
Yeah.
that was just
That was huge.
an amazing moment. I worked on the Clotilda, which was on the cover of the National Geographic magazine. It's the last slave ship, Civil War era, last ship to known, it's documented, proved to have brought slaves, smuggled slaves from Africa, captives, into the United States.
Wow.
And they found the wreck of the ship. And I was on site documenting items as they were brought up. And that's just turning into a difficult but really important and powerful story. Just amazing. So probably more coming with that. But anyway, I guess because they've got their fingers in, I mean, they're living the Indiana Jones movie scripts.
Right.
These are archaeologists working on projects all over the world. And
That's fantastic.
I just keep raising my hand and saying, I want to help because
put me in, coach.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's amazing. So many times I have folks on the show that are doing such honest to goodness, great and fun things that they get to do. And you are one of them. So we get to kind of live vicariously through you and what you have done and what you show us. What an amazing, a line of work that you are in, and you get to do these things. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show here tonight and sharing this with us. And also, I got to say that, in the future, I hope you'll come back someday when you've got, I know you're probably going to be out at Skinwalker maybe again someday. You might be on some other shows that we're going to be talking about, but we love hearing these stories, and we love looking into some of the research and the work that you've done with technology and helping, like you said earlier at the beginning of the show, we talked about helping the story along and through technology. And I think that's fantastic. And I hope you'll come back and share some more with us on this in the future.
I'd be happy to. And thank you, Jeff and Mike, and all the folks who tuned in and listened to me blather on about all of this. It's so much fun to talk about and to share. And, so I look forward to coming back. Let's talk some more.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Mike, Owen, you got anything else you want to bring up before we go?
Yeah, I got one more question for Pete.
All right, cool.
Because he's the only guy I know that might have more toys than Eric Bard does.
Oh,
what would you say is your pride and joy in your equipment, in your suite of toys? What is the one toy that you would not want to live without?
I'll twist that just a little bit. The two things that I never leave home without, I think that was an old credit card ad, right? Don't leave home without it. Are the hover map, which is the mobile scanner that I can walk with. We can fly, we can strap it to vehicles. It's just because it's so versatile. And then terrestrial laser scanner, my trusty Faro S350. Those two tools, I don't leave home without them.
Wow. And carry them around in the car just in case.
Right. Well, okay. Occasionally clean underwear, and
yeah. For those times when you're out and you see Bigfoot walk by in front of your scanner.
Yeah. Great case in point.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah. That piece of equipment, the Emescent, is that how you call it? Emescent?
Yeah. The Emescent hover map. Yep.
Yeah. SLAM based LiDAR. What is SLAM? What does that mean? SLAM. What does that mean?
It stands for simultaneous localization and mapping.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. It just means, a terrestrial laser scanner sits on a tripod. It's static.
Yes, right.
SLAM LiDAR you can move, you can walk with. And, at the risk of getting into techno babble, it's as speed goes up, typically, some of the accuracy, precision goes down,
Mm-hmm.
but not by much.
Yeah. Well, I forgot to even mention when you gave it to Eric, that same unit, and told him to go into Homestead 2, and he went in there and scanned around with Homestead 2, and then they ran the data, and part of it was not showing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was, again, one of those screwy things. What happened there? Why did part of the Homestead 2 not even show up on the data? That's
absolutely bizarre, and filmed live in the moment.
Yep.
That was, I've got, somebody sent me a screen grab of they took the scene on camera where I'm sitting like this going, what?
Yeah, I was going to show that picture real quick. There it is there. And it completely missed some of the interior walls and whatnot of Homestead 2. And again, you go back to, how did that possibly even happen? How did that take place where it missed that? And there's Eric, walking around with the unit right there. So yeah, interesting. I forgot all about that, bringing up that particular point. All right. I'll tell you what. Yes.
Hey, you, because you've got an audience here, I'd love, if I could, you just put up a picture of me all covered up, and I look like some desert commando guy. I get asked about that a lot. It's like, why does Pete cover himself up? Is he a wanted felon? What's going on? Short story is, the sun and I are enemies. So I wear gloves and cover up because I've had a couple of skin cancer scares. So the sun and I do not get along. So it would be great if selfishly I get to use your platform to answer that question. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's my son. My son he deals with that. And so, and his daughter, my granddaughter, she also deals with that same thing. She has to cover up when she goes outside. She gets, the sun and her do not get along very well also. So I understand that very, very well. I kind of figured when I saw the gloves, I knew that they put the wrap around, to keep the sun burning the back of your neck and that sort of thing, but the gloves and all that. And I wondered if that was the case. And sure enough, you just answered that question. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So,
all right, we're going to wrap it up here again, folks. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Mike Owen, sitting in the co-host chair. Awesome job. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Pete Kelsey, I can't thank you enough, sir, for coming on the show here and sharing your experiences with us here tonight. And I sure hope you come back again, like we had mentioned earlier. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Yep. Folks, if you're out there, please, if you like the content of the show we did here tonight, please give us a thumbs up. Even if you liked it just a little bit, it does help a lot. It helps for YouTube algorithms to get us out there and get us noticed more. If you'd like to help support the show, we have our Patreon channel. It's patreon.com. And then you can find me there at JFree906. I just got a new patron signed up today. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. Don't forget, we got another show coming up here on Saturday or tomorrow night. We're doing Beyond Oak Island. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow night. Again, Mike, thank you. Pete, thank you very much. Folks, we'll catch you next time right here on JFree906 podcast. Good night, everyone.